Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the stream. Hello, everybody. My name is Maxwell Miller. I'm a contemporary realist artist and the Dean of the ÀNI Art Academies Dominicana. Thank you so much for joining the stream. Whether you are watching live or you're watching the video later on, I'm so happy to have you here. So today we're going to be working on our King Midas painting, the Touch of Midas painting, and we've got a lot to do. I was hoping to get a little bit farther this past week, but I didn't have many painting days, so I didn't quite get as much done as I would have hoped. Right now, I'm just going to mix up some of my colors. I've got a little bit more of that to do before we really get started here. Let's see. And we're going to be talking about all things art related, and just so you know, being in the Dominican Republic, we do have some power outages from time to time. We do have the occasional internet outage, things like that. So if any of that happens, that's okay. We'll be back. Don't worry about it. Give us, 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and we'll pull it back. So no worries there. But today, while I mix up my paint here, I can tell you a little bit about what's going on. So you can see this right section here. That's what we're going to be working on today. It's these little gold chains. You can have my reference here on the right. We're going to be working on that mostly. Now, some of you, the keen-eyed amongst you, may notice the elephant in the room, or I guess more likely the giant hole in the painting that I haven't worked on whatsoever. And if I'm being honest, I'm avoiding it. It's the cap. You can see there the cap of the paint tube, and man, just all of these little circles, these concentric rings, again and again and again. All of them ellipses, all of them changing. You can see in value and highlights, and you've got some reflected light in there. You've got some transmitted light that's coming through the plastic of the cap. It's going to be a challenging one. So that one I'm going to leave alone for a little while. Maybe I'll do that one off of stream, we'll see. But today, this week, we're going to be doing this portion over here right on the right, and probably it's going to be the last part of this first layer that we do on stream. I think this is going to be the last week. Hopefully I'll be able to finish up that cap off of stream this week if I get a little more time to paint. And then next week, we're moving back over to the left, all these little reflections over here, and we'll start on the second layer. That's going to be exciting. I think for the second layer, we're going to move some of these cameras so that you can get a very, very close view, see really what I'm doing up and close and personal with some of the brushwork that I've got going on, because that's, that second layer, that's really when it comes into its own. Right now, you get a little too close. It looks a little sketchy, a little messy. That's just the first layer. So the second layer, it really comes to life. But for now, we're going to keep mixing our colors here. So the colors that I've got going on, I just have a pretty general string here. I actually have a few strings. And our first you see up on top is just this sort of warm, orangey, it's a very general, warm, neutral sort of string. And I'm not really being very specific with it. You can see I'm just checking based on the other colors around it, which, interestingly, if you look at these two side by side, they look pretty identical, don't they? This is a contextual issue. So this looks a whole lot like the one next to it until I take this and put it on. There you go, the reflection there. Take this one and put it on the one next to it. Doesn't look the same anymore, much lighter. So yeah, you've got a contextual issue with the palette here, as my entire palette, even the background of the palette is very, very light on one side, very dark on the other. So keep that in mind as you're watching me mix paint. They may all look about the same. They're not. They're all very different. So again, though, I'm really just doing some pretty general mixes here, some pretty general paint strings here. I'm not really comparing to my painting much. Maybe every now and then you'll see me do that. But really, right now, I'm just trying to get some basic colors down that I can adjust a little bit later on. Now, I don't normally do this much paint mixing, this many color strings, while I'm painting off of stream, but I find that this is the easiest way to avoid you having to wait you know, every 5-10 minutes for me to mix a brand new color. This way, you know, I've got some general mixes that are already done, and then I can adjust those as I go. So that's what we're going to do today. By the way, if you have any questions, please feel free, leave them in the chat. We're going to be talking about some art things today. We'll talk about, I don't know, we had a question last week that I want to get back to. We kind of continued the conversation in the comments of last week's live stream. So we can continue a little bit of that today. It was about the difference in artistic philosophy between something very performative like theater and something a little less performative and a little more, I don't know, research-based and composition-based and things like that with something like a painting, as that final result isn't really, you know, you don't get to see somebody really do that final result. You just see the result itself. Where theater, a little bit the opposite. The whole performance, it's all an aspect that you get to view, which also is a reason why I think live streaming artwork like this is so interesting, because you really get to see what somebody's working on. It's a little bit more performative. You get to peek behind it and see what went into the process a little bit. So very exciting. Yeah, so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And I'm just going to keep mixing our paint strings here. We've got this neutral one right here. You can see I'm actually going based off of a previous premix. So all I'm doing right here is, this is a raw umber and white. That's all I'm going to do. It's really just kind of a warm gray is all I want to get out of this one. My paint colors here, my normal palette, this is just my everyday palette. It's a dual primaries palette, so you've got black and white. You also have 2 yellows, 2 reds, 2 blues, 2 browns. Browns are not primaries, but they are convenience colors. And along with that, some other convenience colors. My secondaries are purple, which is, you see as more of a pink. It's an alizarin crimson. So a purple and a green, just very convenient to have those. So, as we mix, I'll tell you about my paint colors. We've got titanium white. Every now and then I use flake white also, or, you know, flake white replacement. I don't want the lead in my paint necessarily. But in this instance, we're just using titanium white. Flake white is very useful for portraiture, as flake white doesn't quite have the punch, the body that titanium white has. So titanium white is a lot more effective in moving your value lighter, which is what I want. That's why I have it on my palette. The alternative, flake white, for me at least, is a much weaker white, and so it moves the value. It'll shift that value lighter a little bit, but only a little bit. So in this instance, I prefer to have something a little bit more punchy. We also have Naples yellow hue, cad yellow. Is it light? I think it's just cad yellow. Cad red medium over here. Cad red light, cad red medium, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, permanent green light. There you go. Burnt umber, raw umber, and lamp black. Lamp black in this case instead of something like ivory black, which typically is what I would probably use, but lamp black has just a little bit more opacity to it. And as I am working on my first layer, opacity is the name of the game. I want as much of it as I can get, which you will see as soon as we go over to our painting. I don't have a lot of it already. I'm working in pretty thin layers at the beginning. Although I'm working in thin layers kind of throughout, but you really get a sense of that thinness in the beginning. Do you have a question in the chat?
You have a few people in the chat, Pamela and Inez. Pamela says hello, and Inez says that she's very excited to see this process.
Well, there we go. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Inez. Thanks for being here. Here, I got my face tracking on now so you can see me wherever I go. And there we go. Yeah, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Welcome, Inez. Yeah, it's an exciting process, but even when you're watching somebody paint, I'm afraid you don't quite get all the technical aspects that you need to make it look like anything other than magic if you don't already know how it's done. So I'm trying to invite people in a little bit, trying to show everybody kind of what goes into a painting like this. But yeah, it's an elusive skill set. It certainly can be if you're not practiced in it. So that's why for the second layer, we're going to really zoom in so you can see exactly what I'm doing with my brushes and brushwork, and hopefully get a better sense of it. But yeah, thank you for joining, both of you. By the way, you know, I was talking about the paints that I was using, my palette, and man, I just realized I haven't been talking about my palette and about painting in a while. I'm a little out of practice in that way, as couldn't even remember all my paint names, you know. I did several exercises when I was a student of building out different palettes and trying to see what works for me. And what I found is that this is a very general palette. It works for pretty well everything. And just adding every now and then just that little bit of, you know, I want a quinacridone purple, you know, pink, something like that. Something really bright, something really potent in chroma. Something like that I can't mix with this palette, but usually, normally, I can get there, or at least very close with this one. However, if I'm doing portraiture, I will change my palette up almost entirely, with the exception of that titanium white. I keep that one around. Usually, sometimes that, let's see, I got a little hair in there actually. Usually that, oh boy, quite a hair. I think it was beard hair. Anyway, that cad red medium I will keep around instead of what is traditionally a vermilion. But, oh, you know what? And my two browns. I keep my two browns. I like those. They're so convenient. Most colors are muddier than they appear, are muddier than you think they are. They're lower chroma than you think. And so that warm and relatively cool brown really come in handy for that sort of thing. But okay, well, let's get to our painting. Let's see what we've got. I worked on this just a little bit yesterday, getting some of this gold done down here, and we're going to continue all the way up. We'll see how much we get done today. Probably we're going to get, I don't know, somewhere around there, but we're going to build that out and keep going with our block in. Now, we've been going with our block in for, what has it been, 2 weeks? 2 full weeks now? Normally, this process, especially for a painting of this size, would have gone a bit faster. And I'm going to try to keep it in shot here. What I'm doing, I'm going to uncover this little last section. How exciting. Now, if we look at the back, again, being very careful, I've just taped it to the back here, just a little piece of paper. The reason that I've done that is I want to keep my surface as clean and pristine as possible. I want to treat it as it is precious and special, and you know, I don't want to dirty it up and touch it with my hands and everything else. That's a good way to get the oils of your hands onto your painting, and when you do that, it actually changes the surface, it changes your ability to paint on it. While that may be very small in change, may be very minute, it's there. And when you paint at the amount of resolution and fidelity that I'm going for, you notice. It's easier to notice when you really zoom in and you really get into it. But for the most part, for most people, for most paintings, maybe it's not a concern. For me, it is. It's going to be a concern for me. All right. So, oh, do we have a question in the chat?
We do. It's from Chris Herrera. Chris says, hello. Question, do you have a brand preference? Do you think that it will matter over the years? Like if a painting goes to a museum?
Do I have a brand preference? A brand preference. You think specifically about brand of paint, or more specifically about brand of board or anything else? I'm not sure exactly what you're asking about. I'm going to assume that you mean paint, but the last thing that we were talking about is panels, so I'll cover both. The brand of paint that I use is it is the Winsor Newton Winton line, which I think is commonly referred to as their student grade paints. And the reason that it's student grade, the difference there is that it's full of fillers and additives and stabilizers and things like that. So there's a little bit less of a pigment load. And when we talk about pigment load, by the way, what we're talking about is paint is made of two things. It is a pigment and a binder. And the binder in this case is oil. It's linseed oil, boiled linseed oil. And so if you add more things into it, you don't add less binder necessarily. Maybe you do, but very, very small amounts. What you're adding, therefore, less of is your pigment. And so something like this yellow, for a good example here, I'll just hold it up. Our CAD yellow here is a pretty weak yellow. It doesn't really move the hue a lot. It doesn't shift that hue as much as something, for instance, like our CAD orange light really moves that hue, really warms up that hue. So that's what we're talking about, the difference between student grade paints and professional grade paints. But otherwise, if you've picked a brand that you trust, something like Winsor Newton, like Gamblin, for instance, Old Holland is a good example. I have painted with all of these, and really the big difference, well, we'll talk about a specific brand and why you might choose it in just a second, but really the big difference between student grade and not comes down to consistency. So because all of those fillers and additives are put in, what you end up with is far more consistent paints. So all of them have around the same body, around the same texture. While yes, they have now different pigment loads, they feel very similar, all of them. There are some exceptions. Alizarin Crimson Permanent, for instance, this sort of purple I've got here, that's a tough one. That is very, very thin, very oily, very runny. But otherwise, that's the goal of student grade paints, is to make them all very consistent. And in most cases, I would prefer that consistency than a stronger pigment load. And sometimes my opinion changes, and in those instances, maybe I will use a different paint. For example, the paints that I was using before coming to the ÀNI Art Academies Dominicana, before teaching here, I was using mostly Gamblin paints. I was also using some Old Holland paints. I was using some Winsor Newton paints. And the reason that I jumped around like that is because I noticed that one version of the same color with a different brand was just a little bit different. Maybe one of them was a little bit cooler, maybe one of them was a little bit warmer. And in noticing that, it just depends on what your intention is. So if I'm doing, for instance, I'm doing portraiture, Winsor Newton has a color called light red, that's all it's called. And I don't know of any other brand who has something similar. There's a like burnt sienna, which is vaguely similar, not the same. So this light red is wonderful for portraiture, and it's a Winsor Newton Professionals brand, and I love it. And I use that one for portraiture a lot. Where Gamblin, which is typically what I would use for most of my paints, doesn't have anything that's similar, so I can't use Gamblin for that. I forget what the Old Holland one that I really preferred was, but there was one color with Old Holland that I really, really liked instead of the Gamblins or instead of the Winsor Newtons. So a little bit of experimentation really helps in that way. As far as longevity is concerned, as far as your paint's lasting for a long time, I think using any amount of professional tools will improve that. And I don't mean the difference between professional and student grade. I mean the difference between professional and hobbyist. And hobbyist paints like, if I can think of one off the top of my head, I think Reeves oil colors. I think those are hobbyist paints. I believe I have the right, I'm thinking of the right brand there, but I believe Reeves paints, I tried them out once. Somebody gave a ton of them to me. They were, in their attic, whatever. Thought, hey, maybe you could use these. And I tried them out once, and they were truly some of the worst paints I've ever used. I believe it's Reeves. I will put it in the comments if I find out differently for anyone watching the video back. But I believe it was Reeves. And those are hobbyist paints, and they're not meant for professional artists. They're not meant for student artists. If you use a brush that is over $5, let's say, consistently, then you should be using paint that's over 50 cents, right? So brushes are about the same way, panels are about the same way. If you're using very cheap materials meant for hobbyists, then longevity is probably not what they keep in mind. Brushes, you will destroy brushes and go through them very fast if they're not professional brushes. Honestly, that's the biggest difference. There is some difference, I use these Princeton Imperials, and also Princeton Catalyst, the polytip versions, really like those as well. But those are synthetic mongoose hair, so that's really just personal preference. I love the synthetic mongoose hair brushes. Man, I feel like we've gotten really far off track talking about materials. I could talk about materials all day, though. I've had enough experience with them to have some pretty passionate opinions about certain paints.
Well, Chris says, amazing, thank you. That was great. You also have Joe Gibson and John Gibson in the chat saying hello.
Joe and John Gibson, hello. Would you switch back to my painting there? I've got my tracking on, and when it's only my face, it's a little serious, especially if I nod my head. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So, okay, let's get back to the painting. Welcome, Joe. Welcome, John. How are you guys? Chatting from Ohio. I appreciate you. All right, so yeah, let's get started. Let's get started with these Princeton Imperials that I just mentioned. I do really like these brushes. By the way, let's see. Yep, I've got 3 of them over here. They're exactly the same. And I use the 3 interchangeably depending on what I'm doing because they are all at different points of their life. And for the beginning section here, something that it's pretty worn down. It gives me that sort of blurriness that I'm looking for. So you can see everything's pretty soft, not a lot of hard edges, pretty blurry. That's what we want. We don't want those really sharp, hard edges in our first layer. Every now and then, something like this, that's okay. We know that's going to be a hard edge. That's okay. Relatively hard edge, right? Relatively sharp. But everything else, we're looking for soft edges because whether it's going to be a hard edge later or not, paints as they get older, they get a little see-through. So we don't want hard edges on them right now because as they get older, those second layers become a little bit more transparent, a little bit more see-through, and I don't want you to see my hard edges underneath if they're not supposed to be there. All right, so we're going to continue. By the way, you may notice here a really good example right there. That should be a really bright white highlight. It's not. Something that I'm struggling with this one on my first layer is that my white is just getting dull. And I think part of that is if you see over here, these little dots, little lines that look like tiny ants all over the place. That is a carbon transfer. And I don't know, I do oil transfers sometimes, I do graphite transfers sometimes. This one is a carbon transfer and it's sort of leaching into the paint and it's darkened a lot of my paints here. So I've had to adjust on the fly as I go. The only thing I can't really adjust though is that white. I can't make that any brighter. So that's the only thing that isn't quite working out for me on the first layer, but all right, everybody. And it looks like we're back. Audio's back on? Yeah, okay. We just lost power. Very, very common for here. Looks like our light color reset in the background too. Want to see if you can get that. Man, so yeah, we lost power. We have generators here at the ÀNI Academy, so no long-term issues. However, every time it happens, generators, it takes a second for those to kick on. So yeah, we just have to reset all of our cameras really quick, and what a pain, but we're okay. Here we are. It's probably the color temperature, CT, plus minus. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what Rachel's doing. Can we see her? Oh, there she is. She is. Oh.
How's that? Good?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay.
All right. So we're back. By the way, if that does continue to happen, we are going to cut the stream short. I know it's just a pain to watch somebody go from live to break time again and again and again. So yeah, if it continues to happen, we're going to cut the stream short for today, and then we'll continue next week. But actually, last week, that's the reason that we weren't streaming last week, or last Saturday rather. We did stream last week, but it was on Sunday instead of Saturday. And yeah, the reason for that is we just did not have consistent power all day. So we would go over here, we'd be ready to stream, power would cut out every time. So yeah, struggling with that a little bit, trying to find solutions. We've got the battery backup systems going, we've got the generators going, but no matter what we do, it seems we're just gonna have that second of cutout just for a minute. So that's okay, we're working on it. Speaking of working on things, we've got a lot of exciting projects planned for later this year that we're working on, that we're building up to. Probably, maybe in the summer, maybe in the fall this year. I don't want to give too much away though, so I'm going to keep the rest of that to myself. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'd love to talk to you more about painting. And now that I've started painting, now you can put your questions in, because I will paint as I answer instead of just stopping entirely to tell you all about paint brands and things like that. So feel free, put them in the chat. All right, as we get going here, you'll notice I'm looking up a little bit, and that's to this reference right here. This reference, I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on it there. This reference is laminated. We talked about this last week. The reason that I've done that is I've got my normal reference here, which I'm cutting up so that I can get it a little bit closer. But I also have this laminated reference, which I can put paint. Everybody, looks like we're back again, man. Jeez, okay, tell you what, it happens one more time, and I'm afraid we're gonna have to cut it short for the day, because dealing with it on our end is also, my lights go out and everything, so painting while it's happening is also pretty difficult. As much as I want to paint today, as much as I'd like to get as much done with this painting as possible, is I really want to finish it this week. I want to finish this this first layer this week. But if it can't happen because of the power, it can't happen. That's just something we're going to have to deal with here in the DR. We've gotten used to it. What's it been? It's been almost 2 years now. What's that?
Oh, how long we've been here?
yeah, we've been here almost 2 years. Rachel's saying, producer Rachel over here is saying, it's been almost half an hour we've been here in the DR. Yeah, we've been here in the DR almost 2 years. And what an experience it's been also. The opportunity to live and work and experience a different country for 2 years, it's been very cool. It's been very cool. Let's see. And also, I enjoy teaching. I think I was asked this by, let's see, it was Suzanne. It was an interview that I did. Do you remember what the interview was, producer Rachel?
Yes, it was the Still Life Oil Painting Network.
Still Life Oil Painting Network. Yes, that's right. Good. Yes, I was testing you. I knew it the whole time, but yeah, Still Life Oil Painting Network. Suzanne asked me if I enjoy teaching and I would like to continue it long term. And, we've been thinking a lot about that recently. And I don't know. I do enjoy teaching. And I think actually one of the things that we're working towards, maybe towards the end of the year, maybe early next year, we'll see, is I would like to do more online teaching instead of in-person teaching, maybe like a Patreon sort of thing. Somebody suggested, I think that was last week, Skillshare, someone suggested. Maybe we can do that. I don't know. There's there's a version of Skillshare. It's like, or a masterclass or something like that, that's specifically for artists. And what is that one called? I don't know if it's the guy who runs East Oak Studios. I know I've seen him doing it. I'm not sure what that one's called, but I don't know. We can look into that one as well. It's been quite a wonderful experience, though, getting to teach here. So many different people, so many different backgrounds, really makes you good at it, or at least I feel it has certainly helped me improve my own skill set in teaching and in painting. In fact, having to talk about it and explain it to so many different people of so many different skill sets, it's been very cool. I've been enjoying it. But yeah, I don't know. I think long term, having a focus on the work that I'm doing, I think is more the path that I'd like to go down. Again, long term. So yeah. Short term, we'll see. Don't know. Who knows? The DR has been very nice to us so far, though. Man, every time I have any complaint, the power's going out, our internet's cutting out, whatever it is, somebody sends me a picture from Ohio that's just gray and cold and rainy or snowy, and it makes me feel a lot better about being here in the tropical greenery. So there's certainly something to say for that. But all right, something that I'm really pleased with on this painting here is I'm doing all of this work here. I'm trying to do some difficult stuff, which is one of the reasons that I originally picked out Midas, because all these gold textures, values, colors, I guess, more generally, it's difficult. It's difficult to do. Of course, you try to treat everything the same. You try to say that, well, all of it is just, you put the right color in the right place and you'll have it. But the truth is, a lot of this blurry, out of focus, this bokeh, and especially trying to color match all the differences in gold can be really challenging. So I appreciate the challenge, though. I'm really excited about it. One of the focuses I had for this painting is I wanted to do something that I hadn't done before. I wanted to do a really tight painting. I haven't done some really tight work for a little while. So a painting like this, pretty small, pretty high resolution. The last painting that I did was the really large one. Let's see, which way do I have to lean? There it is. Really large one just behind me there, which is a bit looser because of its size. So trying to paint something really tight again sounded like fun. And that's where we're at. And of course, I couldn't just say, well, I want to do a high resolution tight painting. No. It had to be very blurry background, out of focus, shallow depth of field, bokeh, and a lot of weird colors of gold. And yeah, of course, that's what I wanted to do. So I'm enjoying it, though. Do we have a question in the chat? What's going on?
No questions as of right now, but I can take this opportunity to let everybody know while you're here. Today, Max's solo exhibition with the Smart Artist Hub opens. It's available. It's in a virtual gallery space, which looks really pretty cool in my opinion. So yeah, we'll make a post about it after the live stream, but if you're on now and you want to check it out early, You can go to smartartisthub.com, and it's right there on the homepage. Just click, and it was really cool. It was really, really cool working with Smart Artist Hub and their partnership with the Boynes Artist Award. Getting this solo exhibition is really exciting. So yeah, it's up until I believe March 12th or 14th. So check it out. It's gonna be cool.
Thank you, producer Rachel. Yeah, that was a cool collaboration to be part of. I won was it the 8th annual, the Boynes Artist Award. Their yearly one. They also do monthly ones if you are a younger artist and you don't want to be part of such a larger annual exhibition competition. They do monthly ones as well, so I would definitely suggest them. They've been very nice. And yeah, they partnered with this Smart Artist Hub, and because I won their annual, they offered me a solo exhibition, which was very, very cool. Smart Artist Hub, I think is meant to be like an artistic forum, is that right? Yeah, community forum, yeah. So, similar to, I've mentioned Smarter Marks here before, similar I think to Smarter Marks, where it's just a bunch of artists talking about their work. It's very cool. Really nice to be part of a community like that, so I really appreciate it. And Rachel, do you want to put the link in the chat there?
I actually have just noticed, probably part of the power outage here, I have a message that the chat is disconnected. So I'm actively attempting to reconnect it. So if you're trying to leave comments and they're not coming through, bear with us. Thank you so much for your patience. As soon as I get the chat figured out, I'll put Smarter Marks in the chat.
Go to the Chrome page, your dashboard. Do you see it there? On the right?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, there it is.
Oh.
Yeah, so our streaming software is the thing that's disconnected from it.
I see here now as well, thank you Max, that Inez left a comment as well. It just didn't show up on the stream, but she said you're a great teacher. I think that's an amazing idea. Joe Hom is also here saying hello. And Inez says, congratulations on your solo exhibition.
Thank you, Inez. I really appreciate it. And hello to everybody joining. You know, why don't you take the, since it's disconnected from the stream, why don't you take the comments off the screen there? So we don't have to look at them, all this, get rid of all that. These are old comments anyway, we don't want them here. Okay, there we go. The Smart Artist Hub. Yeah, the actual exhibition. Yeah, just throw that up there. Well, thank you everybody for joining us amidst our technical difficulties. I appreciate it. You never know what's going to happen. That's part of live streaming. Well, I think all of our equipment is handling it well. Some of our software, I think, is what's not handling it so well, but that's okay. This is only our third stream? Yeah, we haven't been doing this very long, so yeah, we're a little unfamiliar every now and then with some of these issues, but hey, that's all right. Listen, the painting's still going to be good, so that's what's important. That's the part I'm caring about, so. And I know that one's gonna be good. Are you still going through the chat then? On the other page? Okay. Oh, okay. All right. That's all right. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention to everybody, it looks like we got some new subscribers from the last stream that we did. That's awesome. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you for liking. It gets it in front of more people's eyes, which is obviously the intention. That's the goal. But if you don't want to miss future streams, you can get notified of future streams by subscribing to the channel. I think there's also like a notification thing that you have to click. I don't know. But if you subscribe to the channel, you should be getting notifications of future live streams. Of course, we put it on, Facebook, Instagram, things like that. But yeah, if you want to just get notified whenever I'm going live, that's the easy way to do it. Plus, we're also going to be doing some YouTube videos coming up here. I keep mentioning all the things that I'm excited about that's coming up. In fact, actually, one of the YouTube videos, one of the soonest upcoming videos, is one that I'm working on with this very painting. I was just recording some video for this, it was yesterday, 2 days ago. So I'm going to be doing a big, long video all about this painting and some of the compositional work that I did on it, and maybe we'll even include some live stream clips. So everybody say hello, YouTube. Maybe you can be in the video. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I have been trying, just to do this video on my own as much as possible. I've had producer Rachel's help, which I need. I need it. Part of being an artist is trying to focus on the artistic aspects without always knowing all of the technical aspects of what you're trying to do. So yeah, I need some help every now and then, but I'm trying to do this one on my own. I'm recording all of it. I'm taking the shots all myself, which is very challenging, by the way, trying to paint and do the video yourself, but I'm working on it. I think I can do it. Yeah, I'm really excited for that one. It's going to be very artsy. It's not going to be as maybe as educational as some of my future ones perhaps will be, but yeah, I'm excited for this one. My first step into being a professional filmmaker. It's not gonna happen. But I'm gonna have some fun. Which, when you spend all your time doing artwork like this and you critique all of your own artwork all the time, it can be hard to have fun with it sometimes. So I need another creative outlet every now and then where I can just goof around. All right. So something that I wanted to get back to after last week's discussion, because we continued some of this discussion in the chat after last week, is some of that ideology, some of that philosophy, artistic philosophy, and the difference that Joe Gibson demonstrated so well. I think it's what is his name? Scuttle 08? Is that right?
He's Joe on here.
Oh, he's Joe on there? Oh, well. I'm pretty sure you left a comment and it wasn't your name. I think it was a screen name. It was a different name. Don't blame me. But he made a comment about the differences. We were starting to talk about some of the differences with performative art forms like theater and something like painting. And I find it very, very interesting. As someone who has participated in both, my major in college was theater, so I've done both. Theater and dance. Can you believe it? This beautiful physique doing dance. I was in a ballet as a juggler and unicycler, but that's not important. I was still in a ballet. I can still call myself a ballerino. I had a beard too, which was very weird. I don't think anyone was expecting a ballerino with a beard. I don't think it's fair for me to call myself that. That's like, what would be the artistic equivalent? If I made everyone call me maestro, but I didn't know how to paint, that would be the equivalent. Calling myself a ballerino. I'm not a dancer. I did though study music and dance, or theater rather. Theater and dance, and music was my minor in college. Anyway, So I have experience with both, and I have found that I think one of the reasons that I continued on with art and got away from performance in theater, and actually the first step towards that was starting to direct, and I did a lot of directing, and I did a lot of set design, scenic design, and I built these huge elaborate puppets. We built a fire-breathing dragon that was, man, that thing was huge and heavy, and I think it had a like 40-foot wingspan. Does that sound right?
It was the entire stage.
It was the full stage, yeah. But that was so fun. That was very, very cool. So that was kind of the first step of taking my passion for theater and drama and trying to put it to work for, with something that I found just a little bit more interesting, which for me, the interest is not in the performance. And that's what Joe is saying, is that he finds the performance very exhilarating, and that's what he appreciates the most. And I absolutely understand that. Exhilarating, yes, for sure, but exhilarating, I think just it's not what I'm looking for in my art form. I don't know, maybe I'll try painting while skydiving and just see how it goes. I don't know. But yeah, I think just the research of it is, I really like that. I really enjoyed in my last painting, the Joan of Arc painting behind me. I enjoyed doing a lot of research and really, really planning out what was going into it and why, and trying to find the proper communication for what I was trying to say, the story that I was trying to tell, and then adapting that story to my own themes, my own ideas. It's really fun. We took some field trips. We went to the Cleveland Museum of Art. Some of the armor and the sword and everything in it. I took a lot of references of those things at the Cleveland Museum of Art. Cleveland Museum of Art, by the way, gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful museum. I think it's the second largest collection in the United States. Second, I believe, only to the Met. We may have, I don't know, fallen by one or two since I looked that up, but I do believe it is the second largest in the U.S. I want to say it's either the 6th or the 8th largest in the world, which is pretty substantial, though that one I am less confident about. But yeah, it's a beautiful museum. It's a really substantial museum. So I was able to take some references of an arming sword of the time period and some armor, and integrate some of those references, although adapting them pretty significantly, but integrate some of those references into the painting, which is very, very cool and really interesting. We also went to a church in New Orleans, which was Joan of Arc. Oh, do you have my audio still? Is it still? It looks like. Is it coming through here anymore?
Coming in?
Oh, hello. I don't think it's coming through here anymore. Okay, hold on.
Did battery die?
Yeah, it must have.
Here, you want this for a second?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to ASMR Art. My battery died on my lavalier microphone.
Can you hook that to yourself?
Can I hook this? No. Oh, dear God, no. What we can do, though, is we can hook this directly into the board. Man, we're having streaming problems today. What is going on?
Hey, it's a test, and we're succeeding.
Yeah, the good news is we have pretty well planned for all of these eventualities. Next to it, not above it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, over to the side. Mic 2 I should be on. Oh boy. Well, I'm a little bit more tethered now, but should be just fine. So I'm still, hello, mic 2.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
Hey, there we go. We're back. We got it back. We're Looney Tunes back in action. Yeah, so I'm going to give you this back. Actually, would you go right over here? I get a charging cable for this guy. Right here.
I'm sorry, what do you need me to do?
Charging cable, right there.
This?
Yep. Producer Rachel, making it
It's
happen.
like several things. Which one?
Just give me one.
There's 3 of them.
How do you charge things? It's not with 8 different cords. Oh my god, you got the only one that wasn't this cord.
I asked you which one you needed, and you took one. How's that?
Welcome to the live stream. We'll be spending most of it figuring out why we're not live streaming.
How's that?
That's good. Thank you. No. We're still going. We are, by the way, we're using the DJI Mic 2, the new one. Ooh, fancy. But, I mean, it's dead, so not really that fancy, is it? And then, yeah, I'm on a little lavalier microphone. Which, kind of our entire setup is just sort of whatever I thought this could work for now, And so not all of it is going to stay with us. I'm sure our stream setup is going to develop and change as we go, but for now, it all works for now. Again, yeah, we're hoping to make some changes maybe this summer, maybe this fall. We'll see what's going on.
Randall Rubin King is in the chat.
Randall, hello.
He says, the dangers of live art.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, seriously. I like the community aspect of live streaming like this. I'll be honest though, it makes painting a lot harder. You can see I've gotten close to nothing done. By the way, you don't have to mute and unmute me anymore because we're both going through the same audio signal. There you go. Rachel, the last stream, she was on the God mic, and she had this really strong reverb the whole time. Very distracting.
I kind of liked it.
What's that?
I kind of liked it.
We can go back to it. We can give it back.
No. This has more art stream vibes than karaoke vibes.
Yeah.
Your mom suggested we rename the live stream Painting with Max at Walmart.
At Walmart? God. Actually, you know what? I know it was a joke, but I'm gonna take your joke and continue it and say that I have intentions of live streaming on location. I'm planning it out right now. We're working with the ÀNI private resort, which, oh my god, the place is beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, and it sounds like April, end of April, maybe May. Might have to wait a little bit longer, maybe June, but we're going to be streaming some artwork on location there, which is going to be awesome. And also, I'm going to see if we can, go down the water slide and stuff. Beautiful, beautiful resort. The resort has partnered with the ÀNI Art Academies and actually funds the ÀNI Art Academies indirectly. We're funded through the Tim Reynolds Foundation. But that's where the money comes from, is that ÀNI private resort, which if you want to, support the arts and are also exorbitantly wealthy, you should stay there. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. We've met some celebrities there that I can't mention because I've signed an NDA. I cannot tell you what it is. They're gonna drone strike me if I say who it was. It wasn't like the president. That wasn't a drone strike joke about the president. Or maybe it was.
Okay, now we're on some
Maybe I meant the president. I didn't. I didn't. I didn't, though. Anyway. Yeah, but yeah, we are probably going to do some plein air painting. There is a view there of the ocean. They have this huge pier that goes really far out. There's ocean views. It's almost 360 ocean views, and there's mountains to one side. And oh my goodness, beautiful! I love it. So cool. So yeah, we're gonna do some streaming there, some on location plein air painting in just the coolest place you've ever seen. Really excited for that. I want to do a little bit of that more. I mean, I've always wanted to go to museums, and I've seen people painting in museums, and I've just never quite had the courage to do it. I don't know if it's, just people are going to be behind me comparing my work, my master copy, to these famous old masters, artists, which is not a fair comparison. Don't do that. But yeah, I don't know, maybe one day we'll do that. We'll see. Do some live painting there as well. I assume that they won't want me to talk as much though, so maybe that will be an issue. Anyway, what we were talking about before the microphone went out is all the research and everything that I got to do, and it was really lovely. And we went to this church in New Orleans that was dedicated to Joan of Arc, and had a lot of really beautiful imagery in there about it, and we took some great pictures. And by that point, the composition was pretty well done, and so I didn't integrate much into it other than I got to integrate a flag and some imagery and some iconography. That's what I'm trying to say. And it was such a cool experience going and seeing these beautiful, beautiful paintings, and getting to feel that my painting was part of this line of paintings that people have done based on the same story, while also telling a very, very, very different story and having very different themes, which mine certainly does from any work that we saw there. But still, very cool. Really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's a big part of why I enjoy the work that I do. And admittedly, this painting doesn't have that amount of research, and I don't want to say it doesn't have the same amount of thought put into it, but it doesn't have the same amount of intellectual space put into it, I guess is fair. This is a very cool painting. I really like it. It's based on the story of King Midas. However, instead of the god giving King Midas the ability to simply touch whatever he wanted and turn it to gold, I instead am acting as said Greek god, and instead have given him a golden brush and a can of golden spray paint and a tube of golden paint and oil paint, and I've given him the ability to paint gold whatever he wanted. And I think that's quite clever. Maybe that's just me, I don't know. But I like the painting, I think it's cool. So, and like I said, I'm trying to do something a little bit different than my past work. Building out, for any of you artists out there, building out a consistent body of work is very important, but I think trying to stay consistent exclusively with imagery is very boring. I really, really find it boring. And obviously there are wildly successful artists who paint pretty much the same thing every time, and there's no problem with that. If that's what makes you happy, absolutely go for it. If that's what gives you the best results as an artist, and that's what you want to do, you do it. But for me personally, I don't know. I'm not as thrilled. I'm not as satisfied. I'm using art as a form of communication, and I don't know. It just feels like you're telling exactly the same story over and over and over again to the same people. I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me. It feels like I'm no longer communicating. I'm just sort of reciting, So not what I want to do. So yeah, this painting is a little bit different, but all of my paintings, I do feel that you can still see my hand in them, and I think that's what's important. Is you just want to be able to tell. You just want to be able to tell that it's yours. And if you look around the academy here, we have a bunch of artwork hanging up all over our walls, and the gallery that we just did, and we had a bunch of artwork of our apprentices and graduates, and some really, really incredible work. And I do feel that, sometimes not as much for students, but I do feel that you could really tell whose work was whose, you know? You can feel the person behind it. And because of that, I don't feel the need to do the same imagery over and over again in order to build out that consistent body of work when I myself tend to be fairly consistent in communication, at least. So we'll see. My opinion on that, it's possible, will change a bit. I would love if we were in a different situation, perhaps in a different country, I think is what's limiting me at this point. I would love to do more of these really large, very in-depth sort of historical stories. I would love to do it. I find it very, very interesting, really cool. So it's possible that I would just want to do that over and over and over again, just different stories and saying different things. I don't know. We'll see. Do you have something for me? It looked like you were talking to me. What's going on?
Randall left a comment when you were talking about your composition. He said it's a fun take on Midas.
Thank you, Randall. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. This little tiny figure here, I wish I had him in here. I think he's over next door, but this little... What's that? Carla. Yeah. So this little tiny figure here was the king in a king cake that one of the students brought in. And one of our students found it. Her name is Carla, and I asked to borrow it from her. And so that's where this little guy came from. But the idea for this, or a similar one, has been in my composition list for, it's been in there for some time. I keep a big long list of all the compositions and paintings that I'd like to do, and at this point it's over 200 pieces long. Over 200 paintings. Who knows if I'll end up doing them all. But here, I'm going to show you on the main camera here. This is that little figure. He's very tiny. He's very small. I really like him here. I'm going to get way too close and blur out the camera. Oh, there he is. It can't follow it because it's following my face, but that's okay. Did I? Here. I can actually do it. Hold on.
It's a nice little thing. I always thought it was plastic, but now that I just held
ceramic,
it, it's like a ceramic figure.
All right, so I'm going to put him up, and then we're going to focus on him. Oh, there he is. Ooh, there he is. Okay. I don't think that's what this camera's made for. It's just doing little nonsense like this. Sometimes get bored. Okay. Back to painting. Get serious. What are you guys doing? Jeez. But yeah, so that's where it came from. And that's... Oh, what? Got a comment? Got a question? What do you think?
We do have a question.
Oh,
Randall asks, he says, your work is so deliberate and, dare I say, time-consuming. Do you ever change things up and deliberately work fast, even just for a change of pace?
Ooh, that's a good question. I will say, in my experience in the professional art world, I paint pretty fast. I have talked to I've talked to a lot of other artists. Some of them also paint pretty quick, but very few artists work at this level of resolution and also paint very quickly. I tend to paint pretty quick. I don't know that I'm necessarily, some huge outlier in how fast I paint, but I do tend to paint pretty quick. I change things up every now and then, but mostly it's with the intention of the end result of the painting. So, for example, the large painting behind me, that took me about 3 months, including an 8-foot frame. So the painting itself is less than that, but a smaller painting, Tale of the Curious Oysters, for instance, probably took me about the same amount of time, much, much smaller, but the communication is very different. So I try to limit my time frame of a painting more than I try to limit just how fast I've decided to go or how loose I've decided to be with a painting just for the sake of speed. It's more I'm limiting my time frame in order to make effective and efficient choices. So I know that those sound like the exact same thing, and I've just described it twice, but one of them backwards. Maybe it is, but for me, it's the psychological aspect of it. You know, it feels different. So, sort of, I guess, to answer your question, sort of. Not just to mix things up though. If I am working faster, it's because I have made a decision about the quality of the painting and what I'm trying to communicate, which has allowed me to move faster. Not just I'm moving faster because I would like to. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. I go as fast as the painting needs. That's really what it is. I try my very best, and I tell my students this exact same thing. I try my very best not to make decisions about a painting, or what I'm doing with a painting, or what I'm including in a painting, anything like that, based on what would be fastest or easiest for me. I'm trying to make those decisions based on what I feel best serves the painting. You probably will hear other people talk about, I think Bob Ross did this a lot, where he talked about what it needs. He talked about the painting as if it were speaking to him, which, that's a very Bob Ross thing to do. So that makes sense. But yeah, it's the same sort of thing. You're finding what best serves the work, and that's what I'm going to do. So in this instance, was it the easiest thing to have bokeh balls and out of focus background and shallow depth of field and reflections all over the place and gold as its primary color? No, that was that was definitely not what was easiest. But as I was exploring the composition, it's definitely what served the composition. It's what served the ultimate work more than anything else. So that's what happened. But yeah, I do tend to go pretty quick. This one, I'm going pretty slow. I'm trying to be pretty deliberate, pretty specific, and not to mention I paint a lot faster when I'm not talking the whole time. But yeah, every now and then I end up with a much quicker painting. You know what's funny? When I was a student, actually, I gave myself an approximate timeline. Excuse me, an approximate timeline of 6 weeks for a drawing or a painting. And I kept to that timeline. And the way that I was trying to explore the work and get more efficient and get faster with my work is I never changed that timeline. Instead, I changed the complexity of the work and I changed the size of the work. So my first one was, I want to say 9 by 7, something like that. It was kind of a weird size. It was close to 8 by 10, a little bit smaller. And it took me 6 weeks, pretty much on the dot. And my next one after that, I don't remember the size. The one after that was 14 by 12, I want to say.
Which piece?
Behind the curtain.
Yeah, 12 by 14 sounds right.
Something like that, 11 by 14, somewhere around there.
The drawing was 6 by 16.
Oh, 6 by 16 was the second one. Far more complex than the first. And the third one, 11 by 14, something like that. Again, bigger, far more complex. The last one that I did, the last drawing that I did in the ÀNI program was, it was 19 by 25 inches. And probably the most complex drawing that I've ever done. It was just packed full of tons and tons of detail, tons of texture, tons of variation. And my goal was to get as much in there as I possibly could in terms of those textures and values, and try to explore all of that and see if I could accurately represent all of it. And I feel like I did. And all of those drawings were 6 weeks. And my first painting, pretty small, 6 weeks. And then I continued on larger and larger and larger, all 6 weeks. I think one of them I went over a little bit, but I was doing 2 paintings at the same time and finished both of them within, I think, 7 weeks, so not fair. But my point is the challenge of efficiency in that way came from increasing the size and increasing the complexity and not trying to get my time down farther. Again, it sounds like I'm just saying the same thing twice, one in reverse. The truth is, though, the timing is just not as important, and I feel like when I am rushing, when I'm constantly rushing and feeling like, I'm behind and, I want to be going faster than this, that's just a bad feeling, and there's no real way to get out from under that. But if I instead say, here's a deadline that I'm setting for myself, and it's an imaginary deadline, and it doesn't really matter, then if I get a little bit behind, I can use that as a tool for assessment and say, well, what is it that's causing that? Maybe I really struggled, for instance, my first painting, my first creative project painting with the ÀNI program was a painting that had all this like weird, shiny, out of focus gold texture all over the background. Very, very difficult. And I struggled with it, and I must have done that texture. Geez, I want to say I tried it and hated it and wiped it out maybe 3-4 times. It was definitely a struggle, and I think it was the better part of a week before I even got a little section that I was happy with. But I kept it in. I recognized this is something that I'm struggling with, and I hit that specifically in future work, and I continue to do that exact type of thing. And now I'm doing tons and tons of gold work and not struggling with it anymore. So instead of saying, well, I have a deadline, and if I don't make it, I did a bad job. It's instead, I get to say, I have my own imaginary deadline. I'm going to set it for myself. And if I don't make it, it's because I need to improve, and I know how to do that. So, I don't know, it's just a little bit nicer. Of course, both of them end up in a spiral of negativity sometimes where I think I should be doing better than this, and I'm not. But that's how you improve. That's how you learn. So you can ask producer Rachel, I'm sure she can tell you. I always hit a point in my work where I think, I'm better than this. What am I doing? What's going on? And every time, I'm right. I'm always right. I'm always right. I always am better than that, and I always should improve. And then I do. And usually, I hate my paintings, and then I get to the end of the painting, and I stare at it, and then I don't like it, and then I put it in a closet for a little while for it to dry, which is very convenient because it needs dry time anyway. And by the time I open it back up and I look at it and I've reassessed, I think, man, I'm a good painter. This is a good painting. This is really nice. You want to give your perspective in that? Do I have my timeline right?
It's a cycle, and it's the same every time.
Yep.
You start a painting, you're very excited about the composition.
It's good composition.
It's a good composition.
It's
you
good.
Love composition. That's your favorite part. You have a
really
great
like
time. You get about 3/4 way through the first layer,
Yep.
and you get really frustrated.
Yep.
And you're like, I hate this painting.
Sure do.
And then you're like, I want to paint something else. I have this other idea. I really want to paint it. And then you keep going. You get about halfway through your second layer, and that's when you're like, okay, this is good. I like it. It's a good painting. When you finish, you stare at it until you hate it.
Yeah, I sure do.
And you find all the things that are wrong with it, and you feel like you can do better.
Yep.
And then, you're right, after it dries, you look at it again, you have an appreciation for it, that it's good, that you like it, you like what you did.
I'm no longer assessing it anymore.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, at that point, you're like, okay, yeah, it's good, I like it, but my next one's gonna be better.
And it always is. Always is. So yeah, that's the creative cycle for me, is just hating my work and then appreciating my work and then hating it. I always end up with feeling that I accomplished my goals, and and I will continue better on the next one. It's a challenging sort of place to be in, to never quite be satisfied with your own work, but I think that can be said for any passionate endeavor, not just creative endeavor, but anything that you're really passionate about, I think falls into that. There's a reason you're passionate about it. You want to make sure that you're doing the best that you possibly can, and by the time, usually with a painting like this, by the time I get to the end of this painting, I will have learned things and I will have grown and developed as an artist, which means I am no longer doing the best that I possibly can, which means I don't like it anymore. I don't like the painting. I feel like I haven't accomplished my goal. But after some time away from it, I can look at it again after no longer needing to assess it, and say, yep, that's it. I did it. I think it's great. I'm going to move on. And when I move on, the next one's going to be better, so I don't need to look at this one anymore. That's it. I think that's important for people. You know, a lot of artists do critiques, and I think critiques can be very helpful. I certainly learned a lot from critiques. I do think that there are some people giving critiques who have probably no business doing so. I've run into that as well. But in general, I've learned a lot from critiques. Almost exclusively, though, when I have gone into critiques telling myself, the painting is finished and you will not change it. So I'm not getting advice on work that's in progress that I'm looking for advice on how to change. I'm looking advice on how to grow for my next work. That, I think, is very important for people getting critiques. Chris, Inez, if you're still here. Chris and Inez? Yeah. I think that's pretty good advice. If you're getting critiques on your work, and you should, I think you should. Any young artists here watching, I think you should get critiques on your work, but just know that the best critiques, the best way to handle critiques, I should say, is knowing that your painting is done and you're not going to change it. And the thing that's going to change is you, and you will develop and grow for your next one. They're still here.
Yes, we are.
Good. I'm glad.
They're standing apart.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think having that sort of attachment to your work is both what makes us artists, and also it's a little unhealthy sometimes. So being able to step back and say, the work is exactly what it should be for where I was when I started it. And now that I'm no longer there, I'm going to move on from the work, because the work cannot move on by itself. I would have to just repaint it entirely. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to move on from the work.
Chris says, thank you so much for the advice.
I hope it helps. I put a lot of pressure on myself as an artist, and I think a lot of artists do. And I think that's probably just the best way to handle it. At least it was for me. Yeah. Man, we are moving slow. I did all of this in like a couple hours yesterday. And in the last hour, I've gotten just that little bit. So we've had power problems, though. It's not my fault. Don't blame me. Blame this guy. Blame. Right there? Yeah, here. I gotta switch hands. There you go. There he is. There's that little man. Yeah, there you go. They're a little mascot. That's good.
He looks so proud.
That's me. I'll turn him a little bit so he looks like, oh no, oh God, man down. We're getting dangerous here. Shouldn't put things on the easel. Hold on. If anyone's trying to listen to this and like, cool, chill, relaxing art chat, and I just yelled man down, I'm very sorry. All right, here, let's keep going.
Inez has a comment.
Okay.
She says, I think we are our own judges. but to be able to move on and accept us, it's a great and healthy strategy. And grow, of course, from there.
Yep. I agree. Yeah, I think that there's a bit of a stigma with artists that I don't know what it is, that there are some people who like romanticize, the tormented artist, and man, that's not healthy. Really not healthy. Van Gogh, obvious example. Van Gogh is a tormented artist, and people romanticize it, and it's easy to do. It's easy to romanticize artwork in general, and the tormented genius. And for any artists out there, don't do that to yourself. That's not you. You don't need that to be successful. And I don't know where that comes from. All of us in middle school listening to like our grunge music. Mom and Dad just don't understand me and my art. Like, that's what it feels like to me. It's just, come on. You're going to be a professional artist. You got to be better than that. Of course, very, very easy for me to say. Very easy. Yeah, I'm certainly not trying to judge anybody, but it's the romanticism of it. That's the thing that I'm suggesting. Yeah, I don't think you need to do that. I am certainly not judging anyone's mental health conditions, but it's the romanticism I don't agree with. Oh boy. Tell you what, also, I don't agree with the previous layout that I did over here. I don't know what I was drawing earlier, because it wasn't my reference. I don't know, you guys can't quite see close enough, but man, some of these angles are just, they're going in the wrong direction. That's not it. That's okay. You gotta pay more attention. You gotta be better than my previous self. That's... Oh well, I'm trying. You know what, Randall, coming back to your question, do I ever speed up just for fun? Yeah, apparently when I'm drawing this out, because I did a bad job. Just on this little section over here. I don't know what happened. Got distracted, maybe. This little blocking, though, it's easy. This is the time to change things and move stuff around, too, anyway. So, I try not to change too much past my reference. I spend a lot of time on my reference, just trying to get it just right. And make sure that it's as accurate to what I'd like the final painting to be as possible. And so there's no reason to change from that reference, since I spend all that time on it. But yeah, every now and then I, when you're painting and really observing all of those things so close, you just notice things. Maybe this could be better. Maybe this should be different. Maybe it would communicate better. Actually, on my last painting, I changed completely a couple of sections because I had painted them in my reference and thought, wow, I can do better than this. It was just not effective communication. One of them, I had a skull on the bottom left, just sort of hidden in the bottom left. And, that's fine. It's not bad, but it is a little cliched. It's a little too obvious. I want people to be able to read the painting and discover things for themselves. And as a result, that one little skull that was like, ooh, Joan of Arc's gonna die, do you get it? Like, just really giving it, putting it in your face, what the imagery, that particular imagery meant. I instead replaced it with 3 crows that were indicative of the three women in the painting, all of which had died young for their causes, all of which were martyred. But the one pertaining to Joan of Arc was dead on the ground where the skull used to be, and the other 2 were perched on the rock in the trees. They had their purpose. They were looking onwards, and hers was not, which is a little bit more indicative of the message of the painting, that her death had far less purpose than it should have, and it's much, much better communication. And there's far much more to read into with that, and the ravens as the omens, and there's just a lot more into it. And so things like that, I do every now and then find myself changing things like that are fully changed, fully made up, whole cloth, while painting, instead of from reference.
Yeah, if I remember right, you actually painted in the skull and then went back and painted over it. It's like if you x-rayed that painting, that skull is in there.
Yeah, and something to keep in mind, like I said, paint, this oil paint gets a little transparent through time, and so there's a chance that will be seen eventually. I'll be dead by then, hundreds of years into the future, so nobody can ask me about it. So this will be our record. But I painted the skull in, yes, and then I painted in the background over top of it, to make it look like there was nothing there at all. And then I painted the bird on top of that, so that if you were to see beyond that raven, as it got more transparent, you would see the background. You would not see the skull. Eventually, it's possible you would see some of that skull, but I tried my very best to give it more on top of that skull so that you wouldn't end up seeing that instead. But
there's a painting at the Cleveland Museum that's like that. Isn't there? Like, you can see that they've changed the arm position. It's over by the Four Seasons, the paintings of the Four Seasons.
Yeah, that was very, very common practice. And I mean, which makes sense. Now today we've got Photoshop. So if I don't like my reference perfectly, I can take a picture of my reference first of all, take it into Photoshop, change some things up, move things around, easy. Where if you were, painting from life, which, let's be honest, it didn't really do for that large scale work like that. Sometimes painted from life, sometimes did drawings, did sketches, maybe those were from life, and then painted from those. But the amount of time that it takes to do a reference drawing like that, and then use that for your painting, it takes a lot of time to change a little thing. And so, I want to move one thing an inch to the left. It might take me 3 seconds. If I were drawing that instead, and I had to just see what it would look like, wow, that would take a lot of time. So more than 3 seconds, that's for sure. So in that instance, I think there was just less experimentation before the actual painting. And as a result, you ended up with a lot of paintings, very, very common of the time period. You ended up with a lot of paintings that ended up with changes after the fact. So, you see somebody with too many arms, or just the ghosting of a previous face, just looking in a different direction, something like that. It's cool. It's interesting. Tells us a lot about the art and the artist, that they've made these changes for some specific reason. I forget what the painting is, but there is an example. I think it's in the Met right now. There's a painting, and the head of the painting changed entirely. And based off of some historical accounts, we can figure out that it was because this artist had an argument with one of their friends and painted their friend out. And said, fine, you're being a jerk, you're not in my painting anymore. It's really funny. So yeah, we gain a lot of history from our artwork, a lot of insight. I really like that.
We have an interesting question in the chat pertaining to your environment and how comfortable you are as you work. Have you ever had to paint with the shivers? And if so...
With the shivers?
Like, because it was cold. I don't know that you've ever been cold in your life, but...
I don't get cold. What is cold? What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
It's 23 degrees in Cleveland.
I would love that. Yeah, I am constantly hot. I'm just too warm all the time. So no, I've never painted with the sugars. Funny enough, I don't think I've told many people about this. Producer Rachel knows all about it. I had a fever once that was very, very, very high. And Rachel came home, producer Rachel came home, and she found me under a blanket. Under that was a heated blanket. Under that I had a robe on. Under that I had a shirt and 2 pairs of pants. And she says a sweatshirt. I don't remember that. Who knows? But my temperature was through the roof, and I was the coziest I have ever been. And it was, I remember how nice it was. just how warm and welcoming. It was beautiful. And I just, if that's how I die, that's what I'm looking for. That's fine.
Yeah, we went to the hospital that day.
Yes, we did. Yeah. I had to take a very cold shower, but ever since I've been too warm. The coziness is still within me. It lit a flame in my soul, and that flame is trying its best to get out. And so I'm always very warm. It takes a lot for me to get cold enough to stay consistently cold. So.
It's interesting, though, the importance of being comfortable while you work. Like, wasn't it Pavarotti that would not sing in the cold?
Yeah, I think it was his last concert before he died that he was asked to sing. I think it was in the Winter Olympics several times, something like that. And he always said no. And then it was pretty near his death that he finally said yes. And he did the concert. And it was out in the cold. And he did it. Of course, he did an incredible job. But yeah, died shortly after, but yeah, he didn't want to do it because it was bad for his voice. He didn't, he was uncomfortable in it and wanted to perform to his best ability. And when you're uncomfortable in your surroundings, you're not going to perform to your best ability. So.
And speaking of your space, Joe Hom suggested he'd love a studio tour if you're looking for video content ideas.
Yeah, sure. I would also love to give you guys a little view of the setup here. Huh? Yeah, please. Here, you know what? I'll give you a very brief studio tour. Ready? Oh no, I can't because I'm hooked in. Okay, hold on a second. We're gonna change mics one more time. Can you unplug me? Am I in here? All right, cool, we're mobile again. Okay. Ignore that I'm wearing shorts. This is the studio. This is my office. That's my desk and where I type. And that's my big, giant, beautiful painting. And so this is my mini studio tour. That's one of several cameras pointing at my artwork. Oh, did it lose me? Oh, it did. Hello? There we go. Oh, that's me again. And that's another one. And this is producer Rachel. There she is.
Can you see me?
Just a little bit. Out here is, you just kind of can't see it. This is the rest of the studio. So this is the ＡNI Art Academies, and this is my office within the academies. But everybody else, right through that window. All right. That's our walking tour. You're welcome. Don't ever ask me for anything ever again. We're back on the good microphone though, so that's nice. How's it sound? Is it better? Yeah. There you go. I'll do a full kind of studio setup and tell you about my easels, and actually something pretty cool, something interesting. I'm just gonna pan up just a little bit. Get rid of my face there. I'm gonna pan up. Those are my lights up there. These are some panel lights, which are on monitor arms. And there we go, and we're back. So yeah, these are just some LED panel lights, and they're both temperature and brightness adjustment capable, and I really like them. I've gone through several of them. Again, we have those power outages and surges, and I've blown a light because of those surges, which is very inconvenient because they're not cheap. But this is the best light setup that I have found that's attached to my easel directly. And these monitor arms, they have more extensions. So when I was working with the big painting back there, you can see it's got a double mast on it. Oh, there it is. It's got a double mast on it. And so I attached one of these lights to the masts in the back, and then they were long enough that they could wrap around the painting, and I could then move them based on where I was painting. So pretty cool setup. So maybe I'll show you guys that at some point, just when we, maybe talk about some lights. But it's a nice soft light. It's coming from both directions. It's vaguely 45 degrees from the painting surface itself, so I don't get really harsh reflections on the surface. And it's very good for taking pictures of your work as well, although I do tend to use larger soft boxes for that. So yeah, I can take you guys through a little bit of a setup tour at some point. And if anyone's interested in our live stream setup, I'd be happy to tell you about that. Although I will say that there are some things in it that are not as effective as I probably would like. So I can tell you about our live stream setup, but it's probably going to change in the future. Yeah.
Joe Han says that he loves the setup. Inez says super cool. And your mom says, more producer Rachel.
Producer Rachel needs her own camera, that's what I think.
No thanks.
The producer cam? It'd be funny. That's the thing though, is because producer Rachel's in charge of switching cameras, she's never going to switch to herself. So why bother buying a camera for it? She's never going to switch to it. Something that you will notice here, actually, oh, are we still just looking at my face? Hello, there we go. Speaking of producer Rachel switching the cameras, there we go. Are you texting over there? I'm kidding, she's not. Just... All right, so something that I'm doing right here, you can see just a little bit. I'm getting these really bad sketchy lines out of my brush right here, and I'm having to do many passes to get over it. That's because I'm not using any medium in my paint right now. My medium of choice, it's in here. My cups are closed, so there's nothing in there. But my medium of choice is Neil McGilp from Gamblin Oil Paints, and I don't know why I started using Neil McGilp. I just sort of did it at one point, and it worked out for me, and I like it, and so I've stuck with it. I think there's far too much of a focus on what medium people use, and the paint people use and brushes and things like that. I think there's no real secret to any of it, I use the medium that I like just cause I like it. That's it. That's about it. So find a medium that you like, stick with it, don't worry about it. It's probably fine, unless your medium is, I don't know, spit, I don't know. That probably wouldn't be good, but if you're using, some type of well-recognized oil-based medium, you're probably fine. I knew a guy when I was in Ohio. There's an artist. I don't remember his name. He was doing faces. He was doing portraits, but half of the face was one person, the other half is another person. And I believe the only medium that he used was mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits, which is a solvent. It's not a medium, but that's what he used, and that's about all he used. So yeah, you pretty well use whatever you like. And that's just fine. I've used it all. This is what I've come up with. But anyway, the reason that I'm getting all those really bad sketchy lines right there is because I'm not using that medium. The reason that I'm not using medium right now is, again, I want as much opacity as I can get. I said that earlier. That's a big part of what I'm doing here, is I'm just trying to get some good coverage so that my next layer, my second layer, can be much higher resolution, much more precise. But I need good coverage to do it. And consistent coverage. I don't want any bumps, lumps. I don't want any brush strokes in it. Raise it up just a little bit. I don't want to see any, brush marks, anything like that if I can help it. So this is the best case scenario for my first layer, and even though it's a pain in the butt and it doesn't feel great because everything's very dry under the brush, that's what you got to do. That's going to lead to the best result for the next step. And cutting those corners means that you're probably just going to have to do another layer after that. I don't want to do that. I probably will, let's be honest. I'll probably end up with at least one layer of unification passes and maybe some gentle glazing passes. I'll probably do that. But I want my second layer to be as precise as possible. I want to treat my second layer as if it is my last. Even if it's not, I'm going to tell myself it is. That's fine. And normally, if I weren't working on a board like this, if I were working on a smoother board, I'd tell myself that about my first pass as well. This is my last layer. This is it. This is the best I got. And if I mess it up here, it's going to be messed up forever, so I gotta fix it first shot. But for this one, that's not the case. Because I know it's not possible to get my first shot just perfect. Not with the materials that I'm currently using, the board in particular, and the brush. I mean, I've been pretty specific to use this brush. You can see it's not a big brush, but it's also definitely not the smallest brush I have, and it's ratty. It's it's torn up, it's chewed up. It's well used, and I'm using this one instead of a more precise brush or a smaller brush because I have found that on the first layer, if I try to use that smaller brush, I end up getting more and more precise, more accurate, spending more and more time on that first layer. But like I keep saying, this first layer, kind of no matter what I do, isn't going to be my final layer. It's not going to be exactly what I want. I'm not going to be happy with it no matter what I do. And so there's a line of where, trying to become as precise as possible just leads to inefficiency. And that's certainly not the case for everyone. That's certainly not the case for all materials. But with the materials that I'm using, with sort of the stance that I'm taking with my artwork, it is. Yeah, it's just inefficient. If you look at artists like Anthony Waichulis, who is my mentor, he's who I learned from. He's who developed the ÀNI Waichulis curriculum that I also teach. He has a different approach. He is also using different materials, admittedly. The panels that he is using, it looks like this. They're different panels. So very, very, very slick, smooth panels, but absorbent. So it absorbs the paint, where these panels that I'm working on here, these are a bit different, where they are very slippery. They're non-absorbent. They're very, very slippery, but there is some texture. There's tooth, there's grit to them. And because of that, I'm sure, how well can you see that? Yeah, you can see it a little bit here. That tooth, that grit, that's in the painting. That you can't get that out on your first layer. You have to put something into that tooth of the canvas. You can see it here just a bit. There's some texture in there. That's not from my brushwork. That's because of the actual panel itself. So there's some texture to that panel that I am not going to be able to get out on my first layer. Instead, I just have to put all my paint down, kind of fill that tooth, fill that texture. And then my next layer is going to be much, much smoother, much easier, because I already have something down. I've already filled a lot of that tooth. And now I can handle my next layer a little bit more precisely. We've also talked about this previously, of prematuras and compaturas and those undercoats, that bone color usually, or that kind of tan, brown, whatever it is, that an artist will put down before they actually start their painting as sort of a ground layer. And you can see I have not done that. I've got pure white under there. And maybe it would be effective to do that, but it would also be unnecessary, and it would cost me days of waiting in dry time and could potentially mess up my layering if I don't give it the dry time that it needs, or I add, for instance, a fatty medium to it, like neomagilp is a little bit. Adding those things can change your drying layers. Actually, it's the conventional wisdom, at least, is that's why cracks form in a lot of old artwork. Is because drying oil paint, it takes a really, really long time, and the layers dry differently. So if you have one layer, because it dries, it polymerizes over years and years and years and years of time. So perhaps you have an underlayer, your first layer, drying very, very slowly, but relatively to the rest of your painting, a little bit quicker. Or maybe your other layers just took you a long time, right? So your first layer is done first, maybe it starts to dry before your upper layers, in which case your upper layers can slowly dry one at a time, and nothing happens, and everything's perfectly fine. So you maintain that sort of elasticity of the upper layers when the lower layers dry, and that's fine. If, though, you have a very fatty layer on the bottom, on your first layer, you've added a lot of that medium, and it dries much slower because it's a more oily, fattier layer, then that one dries slower. The layers on top of it dry first. When those layers on top dry first, they kind of come together, they squeeze a little bit, they form that little bit of tension, and then as the underlayer starts to dry, it's moving, because again, it's forming that tension. And so the underlayer starts to dry, and that tension causes the first layers to crack and pull, and you get those little crack-a-lure, it's called. Again, that's what the conventional wisdom says. I haven't done enough, kind of scientific study on that one, as I have with some of the other aspects of my work, but mostly because I think I am interested in, I'm using the best materials that I can up to a point, but as Anthony says, if you want your paintings to last forever, you etch it into pure gold and then you shoot it into space, because otherwise your paintings, they're not going to last. So having it in any sort of environment, having it with the ability to react to its environment in any way, means that, sorry, eventually something's going to happen to it. That's just the way of it. That's okay.
Anthony did actually launch some of his paintings into space, didn't he?
The Lunar Project? The Lunar Codex? Is that what you're talking about? I don't know if Anthony was part of that, actually. He may have been. Those are digital images, though. That's not the actual work. Wouldn't it be amazing? Anthony spends months on this beautiful, just gorgeous painting, that fires it into space. I love it. It does seem like something he would do, actually, yeah. Just to prove a point.
Yeah.
He's having an argument on Facebook, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to fire my work into space, so shut up. It seems like something he'd do, and I love him for it. It's awesome. It's great. I got a message. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm not going to say who it was on stream, but I will say that I have gotten a lot of. I know a lot of artists now, and a lot of artists who have a lot of different experiences and different things that they're focused on, which I love. It's so fun. But every now and then an artist will contact me with like a suggestion or a question or something like that with an art form that I absolutely do not do. It's wonderful to be seen as an expert in your field. I love that. I absolutely love it. I love that people are asking me questions, and like the comments on live streams like this. I love talking about materials and techniques and things. Really, really cool, really exciting. But every now and then I get asked a question about something that, boy, I have no idea. I do not know. Yeah, so if one of you is watching me and you just asked me a question about something that is not what I'm doing here, I'm sorry, I don't know. I think watercolors is probably the most common one. Like, well, what do I do with these I don't know. I don't do watercolors. Does this look like watercolors to you? I don't want to insult any watercolorists. I've seen some really, really, really incredible watercolor paintings. They're usually like a dry watercolor sort of technique. But man, yeah, some beautiful watercolors. The only problem is, just like with acrylic paintings, I think watercolors and acrylic paintings get a bad rap because it's too accessible. Even though watercolors are very difficult to use, probably more so than oil paintings, I think you get a bad rap with watercolors and acrylics because anybody could just go and buy it from an art store, and you know, sometimes they're like packaged for children's use and stuff like that, and so, oh well, my 4-year-old did watercolors. My 3-year-old did an acrylic painting with his fingers. Like, cool, yeah, that's great. There are still actually professional artists who do it though, you know? Pretty funny. I'll say my lack of respect for acrylics, and yes, I do have a lack of respect for acrylics. I'm so sorry. If you're an acrylic painter, I'm so sorry. I do have a lack of respect from acrylics, but it's not because of you, it's because of me. It's because I used to paint in acrylics, and when I did, I was a bad painter. I was doing bad work. My acrylic paintings, not great. For where I was in my career, yeah, fine, you know. But for where I am now, judging it objectively compared to my own work today, it's terrible, truly terrible. So yeah, I don't have a great respect for acrylics because of the work that I did when I was doing acrylics, but that's okay. And watercolors, I don't know, I just don't like them. Sorry. That one's you. I just don't like it.
I think a lot of the watercolors that won the awards in the ARC last year were like phenomenal. Like, if I didn't know that they were watercolors, I wouldn't think they were.
Yeah, and that definitely says something about the skill of the artist, that they can take a medium that is traditionally, you know, not used for some like high realism, and make it look just really, really beautiful like that. But it also speaks a little bit to the medium that there's a reason why it's probably not used as commonly for the type of work that they're doing, which for me, like, it's very, very cool that it's, you know, it's a challenge that some artists have taken on. But for me, I would rather use my tools for communication, and I wouldn't want to hamper myself by using a language that is not meant to communicate as effectively or as commonly, I suppose I should say. And that's what like watercolors and things feel like to me, is that, or at very least, I have more experience, I have more exposure to oil painting, and I am far more comfortable with it, and therefore, that's what I'm going to do, you know? That's what I'm going to use. That's okay. Nothing wrong with it. If you love watercolor paintings, if that's what you're good at, that's what you really like doing, fine, use it. But I'm going to make fun of you. Just a little bit, you know? Just make fun of you a little bit. Gotta keep that sense of humor about your work. Can't take it too seriously. Otherwise you end up like, is it Jeff Koons? I don't think it is. Who am I thinking of? It's the guy who did The Bean in Chicago, who takes himself way too seriously. What is his name? I have a name in my mind but I really don't want to. I think I might be thinking of a different artist, and I don't want to call somebody out. Is it Anish Kapoor? Let me think. It is Anish Kapoor. Oh, I had it. Okay. Anish Kapoor. Anish Kapoor is a maniac. You don't take yourself too seriously, or else you end like Anish Kapoor. Nobody wants to be like him. I think maybe we've been streaming too long, and now I'm roasting everybody. Yeah, I'm being a memer over here. It has been 2 hours. Yeah, maybe we'll... I'm gonna finish this little section, and then I think we'll call it for the day. Anish Kapoor, if you don't know, he did The Bean, which is not called that, but everybody calls it The Bean because he's a jerk, and he doesn't like it when you call it The Bean. So that's funny. So I'm going to keep calling it that. But he, if I remember correctly, is the guy who tried to copyright Vanta Black. It's a color. He tried to copyright a color, because of course he did. He's suing other artists just for fun. You think he himself, with his hands, made his bean? No. No, he's a concept artist, and he had somebody else make it for him, and then he made a bunch of money for it. And listen, am I jealous? Yeah. I want to make a giant bean in Chicago. Pretty weird, though. Try to copyright a color so that no other artist can use it. That's, yeah, Vanta Black. That sounds like a guy who's not interested in art or artists or artistic integrity in any way. When you're trying to prevent artists from using a color, wow. Also, why? Insecure, I guess? I don't know. Honestly, I think that giant bean, he's trying to make up for something. Okay. These, yeah. I'm continuing to think of jokes that I cannot say. There are some things that YouTube doesn't like, so I'm gonna keep it light, you know? Keep it easy. Stop talking about Anish Kapoor's bean. Who's the other artist I said? Jeff Koons. What did Jeff Koons do? Oh, yeah. Jeff Koons is the similar. Yeah, he did the giant sculptures of balloon animals. Yeah, like balloon dogs and things. Yeah, that's who that is. In a similar vein, easy to confuse them, although one of them, Anish Kapoor, is not as well respected. I think that is fair to say. So yeah, sorry. Jeff Koons. Jeff, if you're watching, my man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to confuse you. I'm so sorry. Jeff, hit me up in the chat. All right, I don't know. What do you guys think? It's not bad. It's not bad. So I'm going to use these Dynasty brushes here. These little guys, which are, they're synthetic squirrel hair, and I'm going to use those, just sort of brush everything out just a little bit. Like I said, I do want to just clear up this little bit right here. I want to connect these two sides. But then, yeah, I'm going to use one of those two brushes, probably both actually, and just sort of blend everything out just a little, because I do have some brush marks in there. Really, really don't want to see those. I'm trying my very best to use the luminance properties of the paint itself and not the topography of the paint in order to communicate anything. My goal is not to put in, ridges or lines or anything like that. Sometimes you see with Rembrandt paintings, they'll do a bright highlight like on the forehead or the nose or something like that, which, because of its thickness and angle, will reflect the white light even brighter, right? And so what you end up with are these really, really bright highlights that are otherwise impossible, because you're no longer using the luminance properties of the paint, you're using the reflective qualities of the paint and its topography. I'm not trying to do that here. So I'm going to move this around in just a second. You'll see it. It's a very, very smooth surface, other than, as I said before, that little bit of texture that's in the panel itself. Can't help that. That one I'm going to leave alone. But otherwise, I really don't want to find any brush marks, any texture, anything like that in this painting, because if I do, I feel that it starts to betray the illusion of the painting. Oh, producer Rachel's leaving us. Look, there she goes. There she is. There she is, everybody.
No,
There she is. All right, everybody. Wait, she can still hear us. Okay, hold on. Okay, everybody, put something in the chat. We gotta prank producer Rachel. What if I just like turn her screen off? Be like, oh no, what happened? Oh, the whole thing, it's gone. The stream exploded. I don't know. Or imagine this. What if I just continued to paint and did the work that I'm supposed to? I don't know. It's a weird day. We've had so many problems with the stream already, and let's be honest, I just don't feel like painting some days. This week a little bit. This week got away from me just a little. I didn't paint anywhere near as much as I would have liked to, which is why I'm so behind. I really thought that I was going to have this finished before today's live stream. That didn't happen. That's okay. That's okay. Sometimes it's just good to have those days where you can just play Sherlock Holmes Crime and Punishment on your computer, which, by the way, is what I did yesterday. It was a good day. The Frogware games, the Frogware Sherlock Holmes series. We started with the older ones. We're working our way up to the newer ones. I don't know if anyone's familiar with those, but pretty good. I don't know if you guys like mystery detective games. They're not difficult to play either, so yeah, they're fun. Rachel's not much of it. Rachel plays The Sims, so now that she's gone, we can roast her for her game choices. Rachel plays The Sims. Yeah, she doesn't play sort of the video games that I like to, which, let's be honest, I don't get much time to do that anymore, being the dean of an art academy and trying to keep up with my own work. I don't get much time for it. But every now and then I do, and then I'm, Halo and Destiny. And what's the last one I played? The last game I played. I played Outer Wilds pretty recently. Beautiful game. Wow, beautiful game. Lovely, lovely game. If any of you are gamers out there, play Outer Wilds. I'm not going to spoil any of it for you. The entire game is based on your experience and discovery and exploration, and anything that you have heard about it will spoil some aspect of it. Do not look it up. Don't go looking for reviews. Take my advice. Just play it. Don't look for any more reviews than that. But yeah, Rachel and I have been playing these Sherlock Holmes games. I think the first one came out in like 2008, something like that. So they're older, but we enjoy them. They're the the Nancy Drew mystery kind of games. We're talking about Sherlock. Plus, it gives you a great opportunity to do absurd impressions of these 1800s English people, which I really enjoy. I love that. We're getting comedy gold out of these games, that's for sure. And it's a lovely thing that I get to play Sherlock Holmes games with producer Rachel. Did anyone prank you in the chat? I didn't turn her monitor off. She came back too quick. I said I was going to turn your monitor off and be like, oh no, the whole stream went down.
I would have been so unhappy.
It would have been all your fault too. It would have been so sad. Oh, Rachel, what did you do? All right, finishing up just this little spot here. Put in our last little value, just blocking this one in. There's not a lot going on in this section, so I can just sort of get that one in pretty quick. Something that I want to do before I move on though. Yeah, okay, so I got some contamination on my brush. We gotta get rid of that. Yeah, sure. So what I'm doing actually, normally if I had medium going on in here, I would use that, but I don't. So I'm taking my white because I'm going to be using very light paint here in a second, and I'm just sort of rinsing out my brush in the white. So I'm pulling out all the other. That's what's going on over here. I'm just pulling out some paint from my brush, and just pushing the white into the brush, and then mixing it back out, or pulling it back out, so on and so on. So now that I've done that, and I've got my lightest value that I'm probably going to get out of this brush with as little contamination as possible. Now I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to get rid of some of this contamination. I'm sort of pushing the previous paint out of the way here. And if I'm not able to do that just with a brush, I can also do that with, there you go, these little rubber tools here, little silicone tools. You can see that, pretty flexible. And I can use that to just sort of push things out of the way, but I'm having pretty good luck with the brush here. So yeah, just getting rid of that contamination. And the reason that I'm going over top of this here is this was a little portion that I had hit yesterday. And I want to make sure that all of my edges are still pretty smooth before I move on. So what I'm going to do, just like I did here, is I'm going to add a little bit of the color for the next area. And I'm just going to take a pretty general color. It's not going to be exact. It's going to be pretty close. A little bit lighter, I think. It's going to be pretty close, and I'm just going to put that around what I've already painted for the day and sort of blend that into nothing. Blend that into just that background white, because this is pretty important. If you're not looking to have any of that topography in your painting, and you're looking to have a really nice smooth surface at the end of your work, you need to make sure that at the end of every day, you're not putting a big line into your painting by just stopping. That is a good way to put a big sharp line into the topography of your paint. I really don't want that. So you can see I'm just sort of sketching in here. Easy as that. Not too much, not too difficult. Just putting in some sketchy value, and that's about it. And I'm gonna go up too far. I'm gonna kind of sketch into it because I'm trying to sort of build this ramp from the flat of the background here, and I'm trying to build that ramp upward onto the painting surface that I have just done. So that way I got a nice smooth transition into tomorrow's work. All right, and with that, I'm going to put my palette down, and I'm going to continue now with some of our Dynasty. I've got I think a 4 and a 6. Yep, 4 and 6. So I'm going to continue with those, and I'm using those just to sort of blur the lines of everything that I've done and get rid of some of the brush strokes that I have in there. Because you can see, I mean, you know, that ripped up brush that I was using earlier, it does leave some brush strokes here and there. Not much, it's not too bad. I've been pretty careful with it, but I'm just gonna blend all of those out a little bit, just making sure that I'm not leaving any hard lines, whether from color to color or from just an individual brush hair that's, you know, kind of scraped in a line. So just pulling all that out, brushing it out a little bit. And this, by the way, this is going to decrease our contrast a little bit. It's going to decrease our chroma just a little bit. That's okay. I really don't mind. Again, it's just the first layer, so that's fine. And I would rather have my chroma and my saturation chroma and contrast too low than have bad topography. I don't want that. So we're just pulling it. And by the way, you may see me, I'm sort of pulling the paint out because I want a dry brush, and you can see it on my fingers here. That actually, I was also I've been doing it. I've been pulling it out of this brush as well. And that one was active, like had active paint on it. So that's why my fingers look like that. Normally, I would not be pulling off very much paint at all. And I will mention, probably not a good idea to have a lot of paint on your hands. Probably don't want that. I do know some artists who wear gloves when they paint. That's back to that comfort question that was asked before. I think Inez asked that. That's one of those things that would make me super uncomfortable to be wearing like plastic gloves. No thanks. So that's a very like nails on a chalkboard sort of thing for me. So I don't want to wear those, and therefore I'm going to get a little bit of paint on my hands, and hopefully that's fine. I don't use any, lead paint or anything like that. Although I will say, even if I did, because I do use cadmium paints, which is also heavy metal, so also not great. But I think the big scare with something like lead paint is that children would eat it. And if any children are eating my artwork, there's probably a bigger problem. Well, at least for me, there's something else that I need to address. So I'm not too worried about it, and relatively small amount of paint. I know it's an exposure over time argument. I get it, and I should be more careful than that. But I'm as careful with my materials as I guess as is convenient for me at this point. I don't use solvents in the studio. I try not to every now and then. But very, very, very rare. I share a studio with all of my students, and some people are unhappy with solvents gets to their lungs, something like that. So don't want to do that to them, but otherwise, I don't know. I'm just not that worried about it. Maybe one day I'll change my mind. Maybe one day I'll get heavy metal poisoning, and I'll go a little insane, and I'll just talk about Anish Kapoor all the time, and that'll be that. There you go. Maybe that's what's happening. Or it could be the time I didn't meet the president. We're back to it. I didn't, though. I didn't. So that is it for today's painting. Wow, looking at it in the monitor, I really didn't get much done. We got a little bit done. I'm going to continue working up the painting here, and almost assuredly by next weekend, I'm going to be working on the left side on the second phase, the second layer of our painting here, and that's when it gets really interesting because everything gets a lot more accurate, everything gets a lot more precise. I'm really excited about that one. The first layer here for me, it's cool to see it all, sort of come together from just a white panel, but it's never quite what I want, So the second layer is going to be really exciting. We're going to start on that, I think, next week. I think we'll be able to do it. And please join me then, and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see my future videos, if you'd like to be updated on when I start my live streams, if you'd like those notifications, please subscribe. Like the live stream, like the channel, and that pushes it to more people, get some more eyes on my work. I'd really appreciate that. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you watching live or after the fact, leaving comments. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And hopefully next stream we'll be back a little bit more to normal, both for me and whatever happened to me today, and also what was happening with the stream and the power. And we'll see if we can work on that. But thanks for watching. Producer Rachel, anything else?
Be excellent to each other.
All right. See you next time. Thanks.